So, Greg, thanks a lot. So you were going to tell us about interest rates.
Yeah, what I wanted to talk about was I'm actually fascinated by the accepted wisdom that lower interest rates are better. Now, no one seems to ask why are lower interest rates better. And I think the first thing I'd like to say is I actually don't think that they are better. I think that having low interest rates indicates that essentially money is cheap. In other words, if money is cheap, what you should be doing is you should be encouraged to borrow more. So lower interest rates are synonymous with borrowing more. And in a normally functioning financial system, if you allow interest rates to be determined by the market, you would have higher interest rates where money is scarce. In other words, it's harder to get your hands on money, so you've got to attract money by paying higher rates. And you'll get lower interest rates where money is abundant. So as a natural kind of balance, kind of stabilizer thing, interest rates being the price of money are giving you some sort of clue as to whether money is scarce or abundant, and whether having money in cash is better than investing it in other investments, better than taking risks elsewhere. You know, there are a lot of implications of having an interest rate moving up and down. We now live in a world where lower interest rates seem to be good, not because lower interest rates are good, but basically because the tail is wagging the dog. Because we have got so much debt that without lower interest rates, the interest on the debt cannot be paid. Now, you need to think about that for a second. Because you've now got a situation where interest rates are not dictating the allocation of resources. It's the excess of debt which is now dictating the interest rate. And it's dictating the interest rate because the interest rate's being manipulated. Because the central banks are manipulating the interest rate down so that there can be more debt. And I think if most people think about that for a second, that's not a very healthy thing.
So can you talk about negative interest rates?
What actually happens is there's a market out there called the bond market. And the bond market, if you like, is like this wholesale lending market where money is lent to governments, right? And in the bond market, as a general rule, the price of bonds moves in the opposite direction to interest rates. So you can imagine, for example, if you have a term deposit, and imagine if you've got a term deposit that you took out today and you were paid 5% per annum on that term deposit, and that term deposit had a 5-year duration, and you were going to be paid 5% per annum for that term deposit. Now imagine if interest rates went down to 4%. What's actually happened is that term deposit that is earning 5% for the next 5 years has become a valuable commodity. Now that's essentially how a bond works. And you have a market in bonds. So as the interest rate goes down, all of the bonds that were struck at the higher rates are more valuable than the current bonds because they're earning more. Now, it just so happens that the market in which governments borrow all their money is the bond market. So if the government wants to borrow more money, they need to sell bonds to people. Now, how do they make those bonds attractive to people? What they do is they sell those bonds to people saying, you can buy these bonds and you can lend us money, right? You can buy these bonds. And what we're going to do is we're going to manipulate interest rates down in the near future so that the bonds you've bought will be more valuable. So that you can on-sell those bonds and make a profit. And that's been going on now since 2008.
So they've got to keep going lower.
So the interest rate has to keep going lower and lower and lower to encourage all the numbskulls to buy the bonds. Because if interest rates don't keep going down, the bonds cease to be attractive. And the governments can't borrow money anymore. So the bonds have been going up and up and up, and up and up and up, because interest rates have been going down and down and down and down, to the point where interest rates are zero. Now what? Now, the central banks now mandate that they are now going to buy any bond that anyone wants to sell. So they are saying to all the hedge funds and all the big investment banks out there, you go out there and you lend money to whomever you like, and you buy their bonds. And it doesn't matter what you pay for their bonds. It doesn't matter how shitty their bonds are. It doesn't matter whether you are lending money to Greece or Spain or Venezuela or Mongolia. It doesn't matter, because you know what? Whatever you paid for those bonds, we're going to come and we're going to buy them back from you at a profit. We are going to give you more money for those bonds than you paid for those bonds. And the only way they can do that is if interest rates keep going down and down and down. Now interest rates are negative. And for this game to carry on going, interest rates have to become more and more and more negative. And you're going to end up in a situation where interest rates are so negative that basically having money is going to cost you money. So, in other words, there's no point having any money. This is the theory. You're not supposed to have any money anymore. You're not supposed to save anymore, because what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to always get rid of your money, because your money is going to cost you money. So you have to buy shit. You have to invest in shit. And you have to throw caution to the wind. And you just have to have stocks going up and house prices going up, and you have to put your money into everything except savings. But don't worry about it. The central banks have got your back, because they know that governments are not solving any of their problems. They're not doing anything about their debts. Never mind the GFC and deleveraging, and it's all garbage. They're getting more and more into debt, and they can get more and more into debt because interest rates are just going down and down and down. And it gets to the point with negative interest rates where actually, if you want to lend some money to a government, you've got to line up and you've got to pay a fee in order to do that. So how is it happening? It's happening because all the investors and all the citizens and all the people are not the ones who are doing the lending. Their governments and their central banks are doing it on their behalf. They're not asking them. They're telling them that lower interest rates are good. They're telling them that it's all good. And they're lending the next generation's future to Greece and paying for the privilege just to keep this game going. Just to make it so bond prices keep on going up. So share prices keep on going up. So house prices keep on going up. All the assets, prices of everything must keep going up. And that's why negative interest rates need to be there. And things are going to get more and more negative and more and more negative. And no one really knows what's going to happen when they get so negative that actually you get to the point where, investing, saving, nothing makes sense anymore. You're living in a world where if you've got a bill that you need to pay, just think about this for a second. You've got a bill that you need to pay, right? And you get penalized for paying your bill on time. You actually get a penalty because the person on the receiving end of your bill, who you're going to pay the money to, doesn't want that bloody money. Because when they get that money,
they get a penalty.
They're going to get charged to put that money in the bank. They're going to put the money in the bank. It's going to cost them. They would rather have you owe them $1,000 forever, but never actually pay it to them. Because when you pay it, it's going to start costing them money. So people will be encouraged not to pay their bills. They will be encouraged not to work. They will be encouraged not to be productive. I mean, is there anyone left other than the central bankers who think that a system like this has a snowball's chance in hell of working?